Our presentation is called Keep It Fun, Engage Youth in Your Community with Book Clubs.
Hello, I'm Darlene Edwards, aka Mrs. Deadwards.
And I'm Verna Wicks, also known as the Mad Scientist. We work at Drayton Valley Library.
Please contact us using our emails or connect with us in our private Facebook group, Word Nerds. We'd love to hear from you.
And you can also find Drayton Valley Library on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
Hi, I've worked in school libraries for over 15 years. I've run youth book clubs and several Battle the Books events for over 5 years. I now enjoy working in a public library. I love kids, reading, and goofy-looking basset hounds. I'm currently the catalog and collection technician at Drayton Valley Libraries, and I also get to help with youth programs.
And about me, I trained as a classroom teacher. I have taught for 12 years, various grades. Now I've worked in libraries for 5 years in both schools and the public system. I love kids, reading, and cats. I am currently the youth and adult programmer at the main branch of Drayton Valley Libraries.
Just in case you didn't notice there, she's a cat lover, I'm a dog lover.
That's right.
So, Verna, what's different about our book clubs?
Well, one of the biggest differences is it is a BYOB, or Bring Your Own Book club, because we all like to read different things.
And our number one goal is to have fun.
We also use Canadian Book Award nominees. And why do we do that, Darlene?
Well, it's because they provide some structure to the Bring Your Own Book club style. The participants can set a goal to read 5 or more books from an award category, and that will allow them to vote for their favorites. Some additional perks include book award organizations may provide support in different ways through a website and/or free author visits.
We like free. Oh, some people might have questions about this kind of a book club. So, does everyone have to read the same book?
No.
Does the leader or facilitator have to read all the books?
Oh my gosh, no. But they are encouraged to read many of the nominees, or as many as possible, as well as try to read some of the books that the youth in the book club recommend.
Does every participant have to read 5 award-nominated books?
No, definitely not. However, I do provide special certificates to those youth who read 5 or more of the award-nominated books.
And can participants read their own books and opt out of reading the award-nominated books?
Yes, definitely. Everyone is encouraged to read the nominees, but they're encouraged to read the books that interest them. So if the nominated books don't interest them, that's okay.
All right, we also like to work with our community, and that means helping our schools, since that's where you find most of the kids.
Here are some ways to reach out to the schools in your community. Let them know about the library's book club and ask if they will help promote it by putting up posters, for example. You could also ask if they would like to or need any help with learning how to run a BYOB book club at their school. And depending upon your staffing, you may be able to offer to run a book club at their school.
Our youth book club has some goals. These help keep us in line and remind us about what's most important to us.
We want to foster a love of reading in youth.
We want to empower youth to make informed and enjoyable book choices for themselves.
We want to create lifelong library users.
We hope that the youth find acceptance, connection, relationships, and belonging within our book club group.
We also want to help youth gain confidence and leadership skills.
And we want to have fun.
Woohoo! Wow, guess what? Sometimes fun involves planning. You'll want to schedule your book club year. Step 1 starts with your basic 1-year layout. Now, for that, you're going to have to decide how long a year will be for your book club.
So a basic 1-year layout looks like this. We start out with some introductory meetings, then we have our regular meetings, maybe throw a party or two in there, and then wrap-up meetings.
During the introductory meetings, we want to get to know one another. During our regular meetings, we'll be working towards our reading goals. And finally, at the end of the year, we want to celebrate our year.
The introductory meetings take about 2 to 4 weeks. The bulk of the year will be spent on your regular meetings, and a wrap-up will be about 1 to 2 weeks.
Step 2, you still have to get organized.
To get organized, you're going to want to get your calendar in order. So here's some things to think about. Decide how long and how often your meetings will be. Pick a starting date and an ending month or date. Decide what time and day of the week you will be holding your meetings. If you're choosing to use the book award program, you want to make note of the voting deadlines for those book awards. And pay attention to holidays and school breaks. You can also choose to feature things like Freedom to Read Week in Canada, Poetry Month, and so on within your book club schedule.
We also use Canadian Book Award nominees.
We have used 3 at the same time, but it's much easier to start with 1.
The 3 that we have used include the Young Reader's Choice Award, the Rocky Mountain Book Award, and some of the award programs from the Forest of Reading. Don't forget, we'll have some handy handouts available at the end of this presentation about the different youth book club choices.
And of course, to get organized, there's always some paperwork involved.
Your forms and paperwork will need to include a registration form. You want to have a form that has been signed by a parent or a guardian that includes up-to-date contact information, including emergency contacts and any allergy information, since you may be having food at your meetings. Also, a photo release is very important, and it will need to be signed by a parent or a guardian.
On to step number 3. We are still planning. Now we are planning for our flexible meetings.
We meet once a week for 1 hour, and we use a 20-20-20 approach.
The first 20 minutes are welcoming each other, announcements, and perhaps an icebreaker activity.
The middle 20 minutes focus on our book discussions. What are you reading?
And the last 20 minutes is game time and candy time.
Yum. Food is definitely fun, and it's the carrot to get your kids coming back. It's an important tool to get youth to come back to your programs. And unfortunately, during the current COVID pandemic, we've had to work harder to come up with some ideas for virtual candy instead. But in the past, you might have been able to get volunteers to make treats or businesses to donate treats for your meetings. I also recommend encouraging youth to bring their own water bottles to all meetings.
Let's talk about the introductory meetings. This is the time when we're getting to know each other and is the first 2 to 4 weeks of your book club.
In the first 2 to 4 weeks, it is all about getting to know one another. You want to use icebreakers, games, and buzzers to learn about one another. Do not be afraid to let the kids make some noise. You want to encourage everyone to participate, and don't let the quiet kids disappear or the more boisterous kids take over. And just one more point to mention here is that although usually I reserve candy for the last 20 minutes, in the first 2 weeks, if you're having trouble getting kids to speak up, the first kids that do, as soon as you toss out a little chocolate bar for answering a question, all of a sudden everybody's opening up and answering questions. So that's a helpful tool to use here during your introductory meetings.
It would probably work for me to get me talking. I like chocolate. All right, what exactly do we do in the first 20 minutes of our introductory meetings, Darlene?
Get to know you activities. That's what it's all about. Use activities that allow you to get to know the youth, both as readers and as individuals. I like to use buzzers, and buzzer questions can include things such as buzz in if your favorite color is purple, or buzz in if you have an older brother, or buzz in if you can name a book by a Canadian author. Another fun activity that you could do in the first 20 minutes would be a library scavenger hunt. Ideally, you'd have the kids pair up with somebody that they don't already know and work in teams.
And during the introductory meetings, you might want to have the kids fill in a questionnaire, maybe by about the 3rd or 4th week. Here they can tell you about themselves in their own words. You could also have the youth interview other kids and then tell the group about the person they have interviewed. And make this even more fun by having them create a visual display of the members of the book club. You could do a group photo, create memes, self-portraits, and things like that. Oh, and we can give you a sample of the questionnaire in our Facebook group, Word Nerds.
What happens during the middle 20 minutes, Verna?
Well, in the middle 20 minutes in the beginning of the year, you are going to need to model how to be a reader that shares. Shares out loud about their reading is what I'm talking about. So you're going to use a book that you have read yourself, ideally a book award nominee, so you can get the kids interested in it, and you're going to talk about that book. So some activities you can do for this, it might be book sharing, which is really an informal talk about books you've been reading. Ask questions like, what are you reading right now, and what do you think about it? Or you could do an activity called My Favorite Book Is, which is just asking the members of your group what books they really like. And you'll find out more about them as readers, which will help you later on when you're trying to help them find some books to read that they might enjoy. If people aren't talking too much at this point, you can use your backup, which is to introduce the concept of the book awards and the goals that you're going to have.
What's in a name? Well, you want to encourage the youth in your book club to own it. Remember, it is their club, so let them brainstorm creative ideas to name the book club. You might want to introduce this idea in the first 4 weeks, or depending on how shy they are, you might want to wait a little longer. You should, however, choose a deadline for the naming suggestions to be submitted, and then eventually set a date to let them vote on their club name.
It's time for the last 20 minutes of our introductory meeting. What are we doing then, Darlene?
During the last 20 minutes, it's all about fun and the buzzers and games, especially get to know you games. Oh, and don't forget the candy.
If you forget, they'll remind you. And as Darlene has mentioned already, she loves buzzers. Everything is more fun with buzzers.
Definitely. During our regular meetings, we'll be working towards our reading goals, and that will make up the bulk of our book club year.
So in regular meetings, if you haven't done this yet, it's time to figure out what the golden rules are for your book club. The youth should be brainstorming these rules along with you. Some examples of rules might be who's going to get a turn to speak? Are they going to be holding a quill feather or another item if it's their turn to talk? What kind of signals should be used when it's time for everyone to stop talking? And if you're having your youth brainstorm these along with you, you're going to get a lot more cooperation when they've created the rules themselves. As much as possible, depending on age, allow older youth to run their meetings or take leadership roles. For example, you could have a recorder, someone who's writing down the decisions that you're making in your meetings, or a moderator, somebody who's deciding whose turn it is to speak next. You can also try to hold a couple of bring a friend nights to get a few more book club members.
So Verna, what happens during the first 20 minutes of those regular meetings?
Well, Darlene, we are still doing our announcements like we were before. You might be assigning some helper or leadership roles, and you'll be doing some brainstorming with your participants so that they can decide what they would like to do at their meetings. You're also going to be having them choose their own reading goals, and as you're moving along in the year, you'll want to check in with them to see how they're progressing with those reading goals. You can also use this time to facilitate the use of library cards. If they don't have library cards yet, show them how they can get one. You can show them how to use their library cards to place holds, to order in books, and show them how to use e-resources to access books, e-books, e-audio books, and so on.
Empowered with genre. So one of my favorite things to introduce through book clubs is the concept of genre. I really believe that readers who know what genres they enjoy are empowered to make better personal book club choices that they will enjoy. I start off the year by casually asking genre-related questions during book shares. For example, could that have happened in real life? And usually by about the third month, I'll have an outright discussion about genre and the different types of genres. Following this, after we've had that discussion, you can specifically ask genre-related questions or ask them to share the genre during their book talks and book shares. Handouts regarding book genres are available at the end of this presentation.
And now it's for the middle 20 minutes of our regular meetings. What are we doing then, Darlene?
Well, during the middle 20 minutes, that's when we'll focus on book sharing, which is a casual discussion of the books that we've been reading, and it could also be in the form of a Q&A with you prompting by asking questions about the books that they've been reading. Later on in the year, book talks become more structured, and we expect them to introduce the book, giving us the title, the author, maybe the genre, and giving us a mini review or their rating of the book. We don't want summaries, however. We don't want spoilers, and we don't usually call it a book talk until around January. So the first part of the year, you're modeling it and gently prompting and calling it book share, and then you introduce that concept of what is a book talk, and hey, guess what, guys? You've been doing this for the past couple of months.
And sometime during those regular meetings, you will want to encourage the youth to keep track of the books they're reading toward their reading goals. They can do this by keeping a reading log, a book journal, or some other form of tracking. It's really useful if they're going to share their form of tracking with you so you can see where they're at. Or you could choose to do the tracking yourself or have a volunteer help with that. Another really fun activity to do is to host a book tasting. And if you use the award-nominated books here, they may find some books they wouldn't have otherwise chosen to read toward their reading goals. They might find something new and find out that they actually like it.
Yum, I think I'm getting hungry.
Hungry for books?
Of course.
And we can give you some samples of book tastings in our Facebook group.
Verna, what happens in the last 20 minutes of these meetings?
In the last 20 minutes, we are still having fun, still using buzzers, playing games, and having candy. The kids love these things so much. So once you've started using them, you can't really stop. But it's a time that they look forward to a lot. The difference here from our introductory meetings is we're no longer focusing on the get to know you games, but now we're focusing more on word or story related games. And I think we have a few examples to show you here.
Oh my gosh, this is not your typical Scrabble game. I love playing word games and modifying and adapting them. One of my favorites is Speedy Bee and Blurt and Smart Mouth. So you can have a lot of fun by taking your typical board games and adapting them to be fast and quick word games to play during book club.
And if you can't find word games that are produced already, you can make some of your own too. Okay, let's talk about wrap-up meetings. You have made it this far in the year. It is time to celebrate everything that you have done. This can take from about 1 to 2 weeks.
Let's party! Well, guess what? We're no longer following the 2020 format at this time. It's all 60 minutes.
Yes, it is. So it can even be more than 60 minutes depending on what you are doing for your celebration. So you are going to have a wrap-up party. You need to make sure you get this planned. It can be fun to try to have an author visit the week before the wrap-up party if possible. When you're planning your party, try to pick book-related themes. It gives them a reading connection. We are a book club after all. At least a month ahead of time, maybe earlier. Have the kids plan what they would like to do at their party. For your part, you want to plan to give out reading achievement certificates, participation certificates, gather some books that you can let the kids pick out for free, and help the kids with organizing how to get some food at their party. You'll also want to invite the parents for either the beginning or the end. You want them there for the part where you're handing out the certificates. And I think Darlene has found from experience it's best to do this at the beginning of your celebration.
Definitely before they've had any sugar.
That's right.
There can be parties during regular book club meetings, or you can also hold fun events outside of regular meeting times, such as maybe a Friday evening board game night.
Yeah, and we haven't mentioned so much, but you can also have holiday celebrations, a Halloween party, Christmas party, that sort of thing too. Step 4, we kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, right before your wrap-up celebration. You want to try and have a guest author visit if possible.
Special Library Book Club member who would like to say something to Chris Grabenstein. Show him your t-shirt. Stand up so he can see your t-shirt.
I like the hat. Oh, I recognize that shirt.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to our book club today. It was an honor to meet you and talk with you about your books.
Try for at least one author visit towards the end of the year. But there is no maximum of author visits, and we will have a handout available at the end of this presentation that helps you know how to get some of those authors to come and visit your book club. And now it is time to talk about virtual fun, using video chat and more.
Tech fun. We transitioned to a virtual youth book club this year around mid-March, and everyone knows why. As well, our kids, teen, and adult summer reading clubs were virtual this summer.
Here's my little inspirational speech for those of you about to venture into the virtual world. Be brave. It can be done. Be creative. It won't feel normal. Be patient. You will have failures, but you'll learn lots.
Zoom, Facebook, websites, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. Oh my goodness, the choices are daunting. Help!
People often ask us, what did you use? Well, we don't have time to tell you right now, but if you visit our Facebook group, Word Nerds, we will let you know.
How about some tips for hosting virtual programs?
So it's really important to think it through first, whichever platform you decide to use. Do you want your virtual work world combined with your personal online world? Probably not. You may need to make separate personal and work accounts. These can be really handy for practicing too. When I was learning about Zoom, I would invite myself to my own Zoom meeting to practice because I would invite my personal self to my work self's meeting. And it lets you know what it's like to be the host and to be the participant. And when you're thinking about that, you want to think about what the virtual experience will be like for your participant. It's great to practice being the participant. You don't want to just think about what it's like for you as the host. Try to make it as simple as possible for your participants to join into the virtual meeting, but take the proper safety measures. You want to make sure you only have the people you want to be in your meetings.
No Zoom bombers.
No Zoom bombers. It's not fun.
It's important to think about the KISS principle. Keep it simple.
Silly.
Ah, I got it. Use just one platform to meet and one communication method. That will help keep things simple. Remember, the more you play, the more comfortable you'll be. So do some practicing with the platform you've chosen and test it out on yourself by making 2 accounts, or you can test it out on other willing victims, parties, and you'll learn a lot. Don't be afraid to try all sorts of things. Learn how the platform works and doesn't work. Remember, you might be the one who needs to give tech help to others, so play.
And just because we're meeting virtually doesn't mean you can forget your manners. The best manners to have during a video meeting is to mute yourself when you have nothing to say. And it's not just about the fact that you have nothing to say, but you're bringing all the background noise from the location you're at into the meeting. So, best to mute yourself because those noises can be distracting and interruptive. It's good to remind the participants that they can be removed from a meeting if needed. So if someone really is forgetting their manners, or someone who's not supposed to be there is there, you can remove them from your meeting. To communicate, you can use a thumbs up, thumbs down, a hand up. That can be your actual hand that the camera is catching, or some platforms have features where you can do little thumbs up and thumbs down icons and so on. The chat feature is also really nice to use, especially if it allows a private chat, because you can discreetly say to someone, just remember your manners.
Share screen is awesome. You can show book club members how to do things online, such as access e-resources. You can show them photos, documents, even videos. Book club members can share their screen too, if you allow it. And don't forget about special whiteboard features.
When you're recording yourself and others, there are a few things that you need to think about. If you're a little bit nervous about recording yourself, don't worry. Just be yourself. Let your personality shine through and it will turn out great. If you're recording others, you need to have a signed permission form, and if it's minors that you're recording, you need to have their parent or guardian sign a permission form in order for you to be able to take and share pictures or videos. Remember that paperwork we talked about earlier? It's great if you have that done already. If you do choose to share any books or their contents, be careful about publisher permissions. Some publishers will allow you only to share their works live, some will let you record, and others only want you to share their works privately as opposed to publicly. So just make sure you do your research on that first.
Sharing and posting. You can record your meeting and send it to those who missed the meeting, or you can post it for everyone to view. You can use a picture or a video clip to promote or celebrate your book club. Members can also take pictures or videos and send them to you. It's a great way to make the invisible visible.
Yeah, some people don't really think you're doing much when you're sitting in front of your computer screen all day. So if you're able to record and get some video clips or some pictures out of that recording and you can post them, then you can let people know what's going on. They don't see the people walking into your library when you're having virtual clubs. So this is a great way to let others know that the community and the youth are involved in programs at the library. Here's a few more ideas that might help you with your virtual fun. Take a look at the features that the platform you've chosen has. If it includes use of breakout rooms, those can be great to allow your book club members to participate more. It gives them more opportunity to get to talk, to get to have turns if you're playing games. So give that a try. Also think carefully about what games you can do and how the participants can be actively involved. So obviously you cannot pass items like cards and things like that through the screen. So you want to try and think of games where maybe they have some items at home that they can be using in the games. So for example, in the picture that we have, we played Uno because everybody had a set of Uno cards at home and everybody was able to move their cards. If you were playing a board game, for example, and only one person has the game board, then only one person really gets to move around the game pieces, and that might not be so fun from the other side of the screen. So just think about that and be a little bit creative in the ways that you are playing your games when you're playing them virtually. Another idea here that we weren't so sure about is virtual candy ideas. When you're meeting in person, it's quite easy to hand out a piece of candy, but you can't do that through the screen. So we're trying to come up with some ideas to use here. Some things we've thought about are maybe a secret link. You get a link to maybe an escape room, a puzzle, a special picture, something that you only get if you are answering questions or participating. Or perhaps there's a mystery and you have some clues that you're giving out a new clue each time somebody is answering a question or participating. But if you have some ideas on virtual candy, please share those with us too. We would love to hear your thoughts.
And we just found this while we were working on our presentation. It's called bookclubs.com. That's bookclubs with a Z. The best app and website for organizing your book club. We're planning to give this a try this year.
Yeah, looks a little more orientated for adult book clubs maybe, but if you're looking for a hub to use where you can share information when it's not your actual meeting time, it looks like it's really great for that. So give that a try.
Oh, Verna! But what about stats? Every program needs stats. How do we record virtual stats?
Yes, virtual stats are a little bit different, but we can't tell you about them now because we don't have time. So there are handouts available later on. And we'd like to tell you about a little bit more fun. Here's a few tips that you could use in your youth book club that we couldn't fit anywhere else.
Fun ideas include brainstorming. Don't forget, their ideas are more important than your ideas. It's their book club. After approximately 3 months, let's say, allow for brainstorming sessions every month to month and a half.
Board games. You can create your own book-themed board games. Here's an idea. After October, allow for 1 extra meeting per month to play board games or make crafts or do other activities.
And buzzers are the bomb. Don't forget about buzzers. Kids love activities involving buzzers.
You could design a book-themed escape room. You could also do virtual escape rooms, or you could create breakout boxes.
You could do crafts that are book-themed, such as a book mobile, creating quill pens, making mini books, making bookmarks, any type of craft that you can think of, for example, shrinky-dinks, or just any craft. And you can just relate it to books.
Memes, they're fun too. You can get kids to create their own Bookstagram posts or memes. Here's an example of one of the memes that we used at our teen summer reading chat this summer. So we were trying to relate what happens in books to what happens in our own life. So in this one, the challenge was trying to find the feeling that one of your characters has experienced in your book and then seeing if you have felt that way too. So the meme we put with this said, ever feel like a basket case? Egg carton?
More fun ideas include, and believe it or not, this is hugely popular, the idea of a slumber con or a sleepover at the library. But for obvious reasons, we can't do this activity right now.
What you can do are word games. You can modify and adapt word games. So we showed you some of those before, things like Busy Bee, Buzzword, Last Word, Storytelling Cubes, and you can use your imagination to come up with some and adapt other games to make them work for you.
Contests are another great way to engage the youth in your book club. You could have a contest for guessing the character. I did that one year when I dressed up as a character from one of the award-nominated books, And I had a special Halloween treat bag for the first person who figured out which character I was and what book I was from. You could do things like book quizzes, book in a jar. If you have an old discard version of a book and you cut it up and put it in a jar, you could have a button design contest.
Yeah, we did that one. You could also try some book trailers. This is a fun digital project. So when you think about movie trailers, it's kind of like that, but just for a book.
More fun ideas include the fact that we give our book club youth first dibs. So when we get new books in, it's a great perk to make sure that book club members get to sign them out first, especially if it's a book that they've recommended that we get for the library.
They get kind of excited about that. Conversation aids you can use. So to keep the conversation going, you can use some of these props. You can make your own dice or cubes. So for example, here I have a little emotion dice. You could do a fortune teller, put whatever you'd like in that. You can make a little video game. What I did with that was when you answered a question, you got to move on in the video game.
Don't forget about author websites. They have lots of great resources and fun stuff on their websites, and often publishers will have great resources as well.
So if you would like to get that handout package that we've been referencing during this session, you can direct message us on Facebook and we will get that to you. And you can contact us also through email or in our private Facebook group, or of course on social media.
Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear your ideas about engaging the youth in your community. So please join us in our Facebook group, Word Nerds, Creative Youth Book Club Librarians.
And we'd like to give credit where credit is due, so we'd like to thank these folks for sharing their awesome resources with us for free.
And thank you to the conference committee for collaborating for this virtual conference and giving us the opportunity to reach out to other youth programming librarians.
Okay, so everybody is welcome to please submit your questions. Use the Q&A panel. Oh, there she is.
Sorry, I was trying to approve a request to join Word Nerds at the same time I was doing that. Didn't work very well.
What? A librarian multitasking? That never happens.
Who knew?
Okay, so we do have a few questions so far, so we'll just go through those. The first one we have is, what age group does the BYOB club target?
I'll take that one and say what I tried doing this year. So I wanted to provide a book club for every age, basically. So I did a kindergarten to grade 3 grouping, a grade 4 to grade 6 grouping, a grade 7 to grade 9 grouping, a grade 10 to grade 12 grouping. Now I had nobody at all for the grade 10 to grade 12 grouping, but I have very steady attendance for the grade 4 to 6 and the grade 7 to 9 grouping. And I had a little bit of interest in the K to 3, but not regularly attending. So it just means like the book clubs that we showed in this presentation were geared for grade 4 to 9. So when I did the K to 3, I definitely had to adjust what we were doing. And if I can remember the 3 parts that I did for that, I had think like a reader. So that's where we were working on some of our reading skills. And then we had book time where we'd actually read books together and talk about the books. And then we had fun stuff. So that was a variety of things. It could be games, dressing up, whatever, trying just to relate it to books as well, though. So that's my answer about ages.
I'll just add a little bit there. Obviously, going to a virtual book club is easier. Not that it's easy, but it is easier if I think it is if you've already done this in person. And what we did notice was that some of our older youth who had been part of our non-virtual book club, who are in high school now, they still keep in touch with us, but they're not really interested in the virtual format. I'm suspecting that part of it is the visual of having your face on the computer, at least for some of maybe the girls in particular. And part of me has been thinking, I wonder if we'd have more success if we allowed them to use their avatar or, had some special avatar or something. I still think there's room to expand into the high school kids, but I'm just not, it didn't work out this year.
Yeah, I'll just throw out a comment there too, as far as the visual stuff. So I do have some kids, at least one particular young man I can think of, who will pretty much never show his face. He will always have his photo thing up. And we talked together as a book club. How did we feel about that? Were we comfortable with that? And also their profile picture would change sometimes, and their their names that they put up, like I've got Verna Wicks by mine, but they would change their names to different things. So we talked together about whether things were offensive or not, or like, did we want to let people do that? And so, we came to an agreement about it, that it was okay. But if anyone was offended, then they should speak up, and we will respect that, and we would remove anything that could bother them. So I have had some kids who will actually try to just write on the screen, like in a whiteboard way, to communicate with me, especially when I share screen, because they'd rather not speak. But the thing is, as long as they're engaged, right? So when they're writing on the screen, they're sometimes pointing at the things I'm talking about, or putting an answer to a question or things like that. So, there's ways with that. But one of the challenges I think is the kids with the access to the technology too. And I know what else I wanted to say is just the presentation you just watched obviously was put together about a year ago. So we've had some learning since then. And Darlene was running the book club first, and then we sort of ran it together virtually-ish, and I'm kind of doing most of it now. So that's just so you understand where we're coming from with our experience. So
my experience too comes from originally 15 years in school libraries and doing book clubs in schools. And specifically, we started with the Rocky Mountain Book Award nominees, and then later on expanded and used other award nominees as kind of a jumping off platform, I suppose. It gave us a titles framework, and it gave me the opportunity to create some special certificates, and it gave us the awesome opportunity to win some amazing author visits, which I mentioned in the chat there.
Awesome, thank you. The next question we have here is, what is your max participant numbers for registration? Do you allow new members to join partway through the year? And have you offered multiple book clubs at the same time because of demand?
Okay, max registration.
Yes and yes.
No problem with max registration, right? Because we don't have I'd say my regular attendance is usually about 6 kids. Now in person, I think, Darlene, you had more.
Definitely more in person, and we hosted regular bring a friend nights. I'm trying to think, was it maybe 2 or 3 throughout our first year here? You kind of go with what works for you, but especially if you're having some sort of a special event that's not your typical book club meeting, so a new person won't feel like they're an outsider. Like if they've planned, okay, let's do, we want to do a movie related to the books that we've been talking about, a movie night, or we want to have a board games night. We found that there was a lot of, when we were in person anyway, a lot of spin-off opportunities because the kids got to know one another and then they wanted to spend more time together, and board games was something that was regularly being discussed and requested. And we were also, unfortunately, prior to COVID, one of our activities was going to be creating our own board game based on a book. That's a little bit hard to do virtually, so we haven't revisited that idea. But those type of nights where you're doing something that anyone can join in, board games or watching a movie, then we would have make it open, bring a friend night. I think there was the, when I did the blind date with a book, and I wrote descriptions on there, and I think that was a bring a friend night. Yes, it was. It was a bring a friend night as well. So no, we haven't had restrictions on the numbers of participants. I had up to, I think, 12-ish or 13 in live and in person. And I here at Drayton Valley Library, in school libraries, I would regularly get more kids than that. So it varies. It depends on your community. It's a tougher sell, but definitely bring a friend nights are a great way to try to encourage more participation. Answered all 3 questions, did it?
I think so. If not, please feel free to write in. Somebody just,
I'll throw out one thing, like the multiple book clubs, I'm not quite sure. But we've played around a little bit with the grouping because the maturity level of kids at different ages, right? So I think, Darlene, that's why you started like putting them in 2 is how it started. There was 2 groups, right? And even just the kids. And then we talked about not qualifying the groups by what grade they're in particularly, but sort of what reading level they're in, because some kids at a certain grade can be more mature than other kids in the same grade. And and then there's some things with siblings sometimes that may or may not get along. So it's nice to have options to shuffle a little bit like that.
In other words, I think be flexible with how you structure your book clubs if you're going to have more than one.
perfect. Thank you. And somebody is just asking, what is Mini Bob? I think they're seeing it on your background.
The books. So Battle of the Books is something I've been involved in for over 6 years now. Unfortunately, last year, our 25th anniversary Battle of the Books for Drayton Valley was canceled due to COVID. Anyway, Battle of the Books is where, and I started working on this in school libraries, but Drayton, and then I joined Drayton Valley Library in 2018, and part of the reason I think that I was hired at the time was because I had Battle of the Books experience, because they had been doing it here for 20 some years. So it's where you have a set framework of books, and we can definitely provide more detailed information, especially if you email us. You have a set number of books and a set time frame, and you can either host an in-school competition and then move on to a district competition. And at a public library level, we are encouraging kids from the local schools as well as from a homeschooling background. And we have two, so we're scaling it back considerably for Mini Byob this year. And I'm going to let Verna speak to the individual Mini Byob versus the team Mini Byob. So there's a lot of different ways, if you look online about what Battle of the Books is, there are a lot of different ways that you can do it. You can host in-school competitions, you can host district competitions, you can host library competitions. I would love to get more of the local, I guess, regional library groups involved with Battle of the Books and have like a regional Battle of the Books. That'd be so exciting for me, but I'm going to let Verna speak now or I'll shut up.
So if you want to know more about Mini Byob specifically on our website, there is all the information posted up there that I have put for those who are interested in actually participating in our community. So you can read all that and watch all that to see how that's going. So that's under, I believe, programs and then special events. And then there's a Battle of the Books page. So, but just a quick rundown of it, of course, with COVID and everything. We tried last year, but the COVID shutdowns happened like right in the middle of getting it all organized. So even though we tried to do a virtual one, we actually did do a virtual one. We had super low participation just because the teachers, I think, couldn't really communicate with their kids. The schools were actually shut at that time and things like that too. So anyways, this year came around and thought, okay, what are we going to do? I thought of how it would work from my perspective. I contacted schools and so on, and they let me know, hey, we have cohorts and such, and we can't, make these teams. And I'm like, oh, yeah, right. I got to think from your perspective too. So I wanted still for the kids to be able to participate in a Battle of the Books, and without them being able to cohort and form. We used to do like one team per school. And they would be from different grades, different classrooms mixed up, and they'd have to get together. But with cohorting, they couldn't really do that. So I decided we're just going to do a virtual one this year that it's like we did before. I think you call it a round robin when teams play against each other and then it narrows to the final two teams. But I decided this year we'll just do one battle at one time. And that way, as many people who want to participate can, it'll just be whoever is going to get the best results at that one battle is the winner overall. So this way, the schools could make as many teams as they want. They could make teams within their classrooms. And I also am offering an individual battle this time. So if you want to read the books by yourself and participate in the battle, because maybe your school isn't forming a team, but you still want to be part of it, right? So I'm offering that as well. So that's kind of what we're doing this year. Hopefully that makes sense.
We might have neglected to mention in our enthusiasm and passion, we might have neglected to mention that the kids basically read a selected set of titles and answer questions. And by answering correctly, their scores, whether it's team or individual, go up. And normally in the bigger picture, we would have a gold medal winner, a silver medal winner, and winning team, and a bronze medal winning team. So.
Although an interesting thing right now is that with the pandemic, it's bad to say the pandemic is cool, but the pandemic has caused us to change how we do things, right? So we were already looking at making some changes to how the traditional Battle of the Books was done. So this is kind of giving us a nice break where we can say, okay, let's introduce this or that, and make some little shuffles here and there. So yeah,
for sure.
that includes like the type of questions we'd be asking. But anyways, I made a note of one other thing I wanted to say. Darlene had mentioned before, I think, I can't remember how you said it, but what I wanted to say was that our book club kids, really become kind of like our core kids for almost all our programming that we're doing at the library.
They do.
Because they find out what else is happening. We've got coding clubs, we've got other things, and then they want to be a part of that. And it's kind of funny because sometimes we're at coding club and they'll start to tell me book club things, and some of the kids that coding club are part of book club is kind of like, okay, I don't know if they want to hear all that right now, but so it is a good base to get for
jumping off point.
Yeah.
It's a gateway program.
For sure.
Perfect. Next question is, what games do you play?
Well, the favorite one right now is Smart Mouth, to be playing virtually. Yeah, it's Darlene's game. So I made myself, I think I've got it somewhere here, but I put a picture up too in the Facebook page, a little menu of games, because virtually, right, there's certain options that you can do. And so I'll pick a kid and say, here's the menu, what do you want? And Smart Mouth gets picked a lot. Now, the thing I was just thinking about Smart Mouth, you don't even have to own the game to play this, because it's super simple. It just is this little machine that spits out 2 letters. And the first letter needs to go at the beginning of your word, and the last letter needs to go at the end of your word. And to officially play it, your word needs to be 5 letters or longer. Although when I use for younger readers, I'll accept like a 3-letter word or whatever, because they're just learning about spelling. So yeah, you could do that with any like Scrabble tiles or something. Just grab 2 out and throw them there. And yeah, so that's super popular right now. Do you want to talk about some other ones, Darlene? Because most of the games belong to you.
Busy Bee tended to be a pretty popular one as well. And that was, there were cards and there were dice, and there were different color coordinated cards, if I recall. And so it might say, read the green question or the purple question or the blue question, depending on which. And so you'd throw the dice and it might say, there it is, name an animal. And it would have to, the name of the animal would have to include these 2 letters. Or I haven't played it much recently. I'm trying to think of some of the other types of questions, but there was a greater variety than that. Yep. Yeah, I'd say Busy Bee and Smart Mouth tend to be the favorites. One that's not on there, that we haven't experimented with doing virtually, but the kids love trying to do in person, and we were going to try and make our own, was headbands, and make it book themed though, based on books that they had talked about throughout the year, or popular books. Could include, a character picture. I actually have a Harry Potter version of headbands, and I think that's where it started, that they really enjoyed playing that one. But any game, there are lots of games that you can use and adapt and modify, as long as you're having fun. Silly sentences. Oh yeah, when you do the game where people add another word to a story, it's called many different things. Like
we played we call it Story in the Round, is one that we did. Yeah, although we've also done a similar thing using the story cubes.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know where they are right now, but that's not important. Okay. Anyways.
Awesome. Thank you. Next question is thoughts regarding a combination walking, hiking, and book club for youth, or any sort of alternative format.
Go for it.
Yeah, well, we're hoping to do some outside programming a little bit now that the weather is getting nicer. So yeah, that's a possibility. I'm hoping we can do like at least a party type thing this year outside, maybe. I say take your pool noodle and just like poke everybody if they're too close to you, you know.
Well, you could have a fashion contest. Everybody has to design their pool noodle outfit.
Or fancy mask decorating. Anyways, we digress.
Thinking of the hiking reminds me of some of the things you've done with geocaching. That's not specifically book club related, but that certainly would be a great hiking option.
Yeah, one of the things, like I'm the programmer here, so I don't just have book clubs to do. So it was kind of this year, I didn't particularly make our celebrations in that specifically book club, but, you know, trying to make it open to all people, like the concert things that I did and so on. And that's kind of what's in my mind too, because kill two birds with one stone kind of thing, right? Like invite the book club kids and invite everybody. But I know you got to do some special stuff just for them too.
Well, they get the pizza party. Well, I don't know if we can do that.
Yeah.
We couldn't do that last year. I don't know if we can do
everybody
that.
Bring your own pizza.
It has to be individual food or individually packaged or yeah.
Yeah, we'll figure something
out. Next up is, do you purchase or receive multiple copies of books to distribute, especially for award books?
Not on purpose.
No.
Sorry.
The answer is no. So as part of Yellowhead Regional Library, I definitely make sure that we purchase a copy of each book, and then we have to encourage the kids to put holds on those books using TrackPack from the other libraries. And I know maybe that could be shooting ourselves in the foot here, having everybody else choose to do something similar. But eventually, if it came down to it, I suppose, if the numbers warrant, sure, why not purchase more than one copy for your library? But you have to balance it with your budget and what you can do.
Yeah. Part of the question was about books for awards as well. So I like to be cheap when I can, but so we've been using, when we have good quality donations or that can't make it into the library, right? For whatever reason, they're too old, we already have a copy, that kind of thing, but they're still in really good shape. Or when we're weeding and some of the books are still in good shape, we clean them up, and Darlene had a great idea. We put the sticker, what does it say? This book is a prize from Drayton Valley Libraries, on top of the stamp that said it belonged to the library. And now it's a prize and not a library book. So there's an idea for you.
We did have a separate Rotary Children's Library, so we did have some duplicate titles in the past. Unfortunately, with COVID and other factors, our children's library closed at the end of the year. So in that case, when we had duplicates, then we used them for book club, and then we repurposed where we could books in good shape as prizes. And we don't assign the prizes typically. We let them pick from a selection, unless it's like our Susan Nielsen event, which we will be scheduling. We have won a virtual author visit from Susan Nielsen. So we plan to have at least one of her books available as a prize, a draw prize for, I think, I'm not sure if we've decided for this for certain, but maybe the youth who has read the most books by Susan Nielsen, or just a random draw prize.
One other thing with the book prizes that I've done, kind of have a shelf that has all of them on. And I've had to do this virtually at this point, but when they were coming in the library for a little bit, I got to take them over to the shelf. They could look at the shelf too. But I let them look at what books there are, and they can pick out a book ahead of time that they want to get for a prize. So if we're doing something like we're trying to reach our personal reading goal for the week or something, and if we do, we get to have a book prize, or our challenge is to read a Rocky Mountain book award nominated book before the end of the month and we reach it, we get to have the book prize. So if they know which book they're aiming for, it kind of can help to motivate too. So I'll set those ones aside for them when they reach that goal.
You did have a design your own button contest, and I can't remember if we did or we just talked about having a design your own bookmark contest too. So there are different things you can do for prizes that get the kids involved in designs. That's my son's ringtone. My
Once you get picked up,
why I'm not there to pick him up.
you will be soon.
Okay, we just have 2 more questions to get through, and then we'll wrap this up here. When would you typically run the in-school book clubs?
That would be for you.
So typically I had to run them during the lunch break, because most of the students were bused. I was in Springbank outside of Calgary, and I would say 90% or more of the kids took the school bus. So there was usually a time crunch, so they would have to bring their lunches and eat their lunches while we did book club. I have, since I've been in Drayton Valley, I went and visited the schools, and I arranged with their librarian, usually a time that would work for me to come and do like a book club presentation. And that would be either to encourage them to come to the library and join our book club. But I also offer, and I suspect Verna has as well, I have offered to help mentor the local school librarians with starting their own book clubs.
Perfect.
And for the ones at the library here, we're at 4:00 is when we're doing it. So after school, but not too tight after school.
And lastly, are your book clubs held weekly or monthly? And does it depend on the attendance?
Weekly. They are weekly. And I think it's important for them to be weekly too. Programs that I've tried to do monthly, not necessarily book clubs, but they forget which week it is, So if it's every week, they're able to remember Tuesday, always Tuesday. And I have another program. This is a perfect example of it. On Fridays, I call it Creative Steam, and we alternate what we do on the varying weeks. But the kids show up and I say, okay, do you guys know what we're doing today? They're like, nope. they just know they're supposed to be here because it's Friday, right? So, being consistent is really key, I think.
Agreed. And weekly also helps to foster a reading habit, which is something with the younger kids that we are trying to do. With oftentimes for book clubs with your older kids, you're going to initially only get those kids who are who have a reading habit. So with your younger kids, you're looking to build a reading habit. And if they show up this week and they don't have a book to talk about, then you're just very positive about it. And hey, that's okay. We'll be really interested in what you have to share next week. You don't try and make that a negative. You make it a positive, and you move forward. So we're looking to build those reading habits, and I would not encourage you to try to do it monthly. I have a hard time seeing that working very well.
Yeah, you could do something special once a month.
Definitely.
That's
I think after that first year, it got to be where the kids really wanted to do something extra once a month, where they had more than an hour. So we would plan like a movie or a board games session, or there was talk. We never did, but there was talk about having a slumber party at the library. Hey, I'm game. I'm open to whatever they Actually, that goes back to in-school libraries. Unfortunately, the principal would not give his permission, but those kids tried. They really wanted to have a slumber party at the library in the school.
Awesome. Thank you so much to both of you, Darlene and Verna. That was really fantastic. And there's lots of feedback coming in the chat that people are excited and are going back with a lot of ideas coming out of this. So that's perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping for.
Great, fantastic. Please share, please join our Facebook group so that we can share those ideas and get those conversations going. I see in the chat that you can play headbands on your cell phone. How did I not know this? I have to try this.
I played it once. You just hold it here and there's this thing and you, anyways, oh, it's so fun.
No, there's an app. I think they're saying that there's an app for it.
I think so. Yeah, it's fun.
See, there's just always ideas out there, right? It's just
Absolutely.
a matter of harnessing the ones that are going to work for you.
So thank you for sharing.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Really happy to have all of you attend. And thanks again to our presenters. This was fantastic. And I hope everybody enjoys the rest of your day. We'll see you again. Thank you.
Bye.